see your slides. Charlie is today's guest speaker. I was just talking with him and saying it's a privilege to have him here. Charlie is the founder and managing director of Futury. If you don't know Futury, go and check it out. It's an awesome project. It's the startup and innovation platform offers a unique program in which students and graduates develop and incubate sustainable, innovative, and future-oriented solutions together with companies. So this sounds very marketing-wise, but is bridging two worlds that rarely have the chance to connect: young talent and real-world problems that need to be solved. Charlie's central interest is to combine innovation and sustainability together with customer-centric, okay, to generate high user adoption. So putting customers first. You've heard this before throughout these weeks. Before founding Futury, he worked in various management consultancies, including Roland Berger and Accenture. Charlie studied business administration and a minor in law in Munich, Ostrich-Winkel, Heidelberg, and San Diego. So thank you, Charlie, for being here. And this is a great class. I'm sure the students by the end of your presentation will have loads of questions and they will want to pick your brain as well. So once again, thank you for being here.
Yeah, Thiago, thank you. And yeah, thanks for having me. Welcome, a warm welcome from my side to everybody. So as I understood, I'm gonna have the next 20 to 30 minutes to not only talk about me, maybe also a little bit what we do in the field of entrepreneurship, innovation, what's related to your project, then what you did during the last 10 or 11 weeks already. But for me, most important, please feel free to ask any questions. So it's about all your questions, everything you want to know, and I hopefully can answer. So it's not like a monologue where I just speak and talk. So please don't hesitate to ask any questions. So that we really get the most out of that session. And then later on, of course, I'm really curious and looking forward to your pitches and your ideas. I heard a bit before, but now I can hear directly from you what your ideas are and what you're looking for with your business ideas, pitches, and maybe also prototypes later on. So yeah, Thiago already told a few sentences about me. I'm Charlie. Currently, right now, I'm the founder and managing director of Futury. But before, just a little bit from my CV, what I did before and how I became an entrepreneur eventually. I studied very classically business studies, and in a side track, in the minor track, also business law. Here in Germany at a few universities, also spent some time abroad in the US. And during my studies, it wasn't that clear that I might become an entrepreneur because I worked for a few consultancies, for Deloitte Consulting, for Accenture, and in the end, after my studies, for Roland Berger, a German consultancy. And what I did there wasn't that much entrepreneurial. So it was like consulting clients. So you're just a service provider. You're not like in the driver's seat, which is quite different when you later on found your own company maybe, or you're joining a startup, very early stage. So I did a lot of work in different industries, did some automotive, some real estate, for the publishing and printing industry, and also did a lot of restructuring work. So you're the guys coming in when things go wrong, and then you have to restructure, do the turnaround, change management, etc. And so this is kind of what I did in my professional career. But before I founded my first company back when I was 17, I was still in school, and you wouldn't call it kind of that startup, what you call today. It wasn't tech, it wasn't scalable. It was just an idea with passionate people behind it. And we simply started it because we had no idea what it's going to be and what it's going to be like to be an entrepreneur that early on. But so there were always kind of, you could say, two hearts beating in my chest. The one was entrepreneur, first time 17, then we founded a total of 3 companies. But then when I started my studies, I switched more on the kind of or what the other heart said, in a professional service sector and doing consulting work with clients. But then one of my last stations was actually a university. I worked for a university. And so we looked at the corporate and talent market. And we saw that kind of the fit was missing between corporates and what they're looking for in talents, and what talents want and what their demands from corporates. So like a few years ago, you would just sign a contract with one of the big companies you all know here in Germany, like the major players like Siemens, Allianz, or Deutsche Bank. And then you were just like happy receiving your money, having a good job and making your career. But not only us, all the corporates noticed, okay, generations are changing and their demands are changing. And it's more like they're looking for special topics. They have a special interest, and the demand is changing from like, I just want to pursue a career, to being more determined in what I want and more determined what I'm looking for, also in terms of culture, in terms of values, in terms of contribution, etc. So everybody's talking about that generation Y and Z and millennials, and I don't know. But so we said, okay, why don't we try to develop a platform where corporates and talent meet, but in kind of a more natural way? Not that kind of, I apply, do an interview, and then I get a contract or not, or an offer or not, but more, let's try to put both on one platform and connect them in a more natural way in terms of conducting projects together, doing some stuff on innovation, on research. And this was kind of our first hypothesis when we developed Futury. This was a little more than 5 years ago. And actually we conducted some project with corporates and talents in the end. And it developed, and what we're doing right now, I can tell in a second. We developed a few programs still based around corporates, on the one hand, having a need for innovation, for talent, for new ideas. And then on the other hand, young people and graduates like you that might have ideas, that might be creative and want to tackle the big challenges and problems that corporates face, but from a different perspective, not being an employee, but more like being an entrepreneur. And so this is what we are doing here at Futury. And if you're interested in that, I don't want to do marketing here. We can talk about that afterwards, what kind of programs we have. But here today, it's more about, a little more about you. And so, I don't know, Thiago, is it possible that I can share a few slides? Just, I have a few. Is it possible to share them?
Please take control of Zoom.
All right, I'm just gonna...
You're the ship captain for now.
Okay, that sounds great. I hope you can all see my slides now. Perfect. This is just introduction. What I already talked about. This is what Futury is doing: educator, connector, facilitator, driver, and a spin-off. And as I said, if you have questions, we can talk about that later, but I don't want to annoy you with too much Futury and marketing stuff here. This is, again, what I said, connecting the industry, the corporate world, to young people from universities. We have different programs to do that. But more important, to talk about you and how I also became an entrepreneur, because what I realized in my career, I founded a few companies very early on. Then I worked for a lot of consultancies in the professional business. And of course, you do have a contribution, what you do in your work. Let it be like a finance role, in purchasing, in marketing, whatever you do. But your contribution always is limited, especially when you start early on, and when you might, as I am, when you're a creative guy and have new ideas and can think of new ways of doing things, or even new business model, new product. Of course, in a big corporation, or especially when you're working for a consultancy, you're kind of limited in doing that. And so I know for graduates, especially for like younger generation, they always ask, what is my contribution? How can I have an impact on the future, impact on things? We talk a lot about ethics and values and value creation in companies, sustainability, one of the mega topics nowadays. And you might know that quote, it's quite often used, but I think it's still a good one. It's from Peter Drucker, I think originating back from the 80s, where he said the best way to predict your future is to create it. And this is kind of what I think every entrepreneur should have in his heart, really embedded in his thinking, his mind. Because when you really want to have an impact on things, of course, you can look for corporate careers. But if you want to do it your way, then maybe becoming an entrepreneur might be the best thing. And so congrats for choosing that course. And so this was kind of your first step into the entrepreneurial world. And from now on, it's also, it's up to you what you make out of it. So after you leave the course, after you leave university, you're not limited to anything, or you're not bound by any factors. It's really what you make out of it. So I want to talk a little bit about personality, lifestyle, not too much about like the background in terms of what you studied or where you come from. Really what you might want to prepare for when becoming an entrepreneur, because it's kind of a special role you take on very early on. And so I have kind of that three categories, and this is not a scientific model, I have to say. I know we're here in a university context, but this is like from my personal experience, more than what you would find in textbooks. So personality, lifestyle, passion. I think this is these are three criteria or three areas where you're gonna be, or you're gonna make a different experience compared to, let's say, more classical careers. First of all, personality. I mean, risk. What is risk? This is kind of, as an entrepreneur, it's your job to take risk, your job to identify risk, take risk. Of course, you want to mitigate risk also. But if you're like more risk averse and more looking for safety, security in what you do, in how you plan your personal life also, this might become difficult. You have to take the risk as they arise, and then it's also your job to take risk as you build your first company. Then responsibility. When you start your own business, and you will notice it, as soon as you hire your first employee, you have a huge responsibility, because you as a person, you're giving a promise to somebody to join your company, to be on a certain like path or way for the next years. And so for this person, it's also a risk, and then you bear the responsibility. So you shouldn't be too much afraid of responsibility. Yes, sometimes it is frightening a bit, but you get used to it. And sometimes it's like having responsibility is great, but sometimes you will also notice the weight on your shoulder. And you can ask any entrepreneur, startup guy, however you might want to call that. Responsibility is really one of the decisive factors in starting your own business. Mistakes, we do them all the time. We learn from them. They are just fine for us. And if you join a startup or build your own company, mistakes are just, they are there, they happen. And you should learn from them and not be afraid of making mistakes, because often you will go into areas where you wouldn't find a blueprint for this, or you can't just ask anybody, how should I do that? Or do you have any kind of process or whatever? So you will make mistakes, and so you shouldn't be afraid of them. This is simply what I'm saying. I know in society, sometimes depends on bit, in the US, this is a different one, but here in Europe, especially in Germany, making mistakes is always, or still something bad, you would say. Oh, he or she made a mistake over there. But for you as an entrepreneur, this is just natural and this is necessary to learn. The second kind of category, what I also see, lifestyle. We see my house, my boat, my car, my whatever. This is not the way you will find, or the situation you will find yourself in, at least during the first years. And I can tell you, coming from consultancies, from strategic consultancies, where you really earn a lot of money, and then going back, becoming an entrepreneur, you should be ready to also make sacrifices. But your reward is on kind of a different level. It's not a monetary reward. It's what I said before. It's defining your own way, creating impact, having a greater contribution. Of course, in the end, also becoming an entrepreneur should pay off and can pay off in terms of when your company develops a bit, you can yourself pay a higher salary. You might want to sell your company in the end, but it's really directly connected to the contribution you really have and the value you create. So if your company is of value, then in the end, then you might sell it and have that great access everybody is talking about and that you see in all the great movies. But get prepared to make sacrifices, at least in the first years. And this will also help you to focus on what really matters and what's really important and necessary, because you don't have all that stuff around you, and it also keeps your focus a little bit. And then, of course, you need passion. You need passion for what you do. This is maybe the most important thing, that you should love what you do, like your service, your product, your company, the industry you're working in. And it's really, I always say, whoever has a plan B simply doesn't believe in plan A. I know this is kind of a hard one, but if you're an entrepreneur and in the early days, you need to sell yourself, you need to sell your company, and you need to convince people. And you might, or it might happen that you're not good at convincing people if you have like different alternatives for stuff, because investors, first customers, they're not investing just in a business, they invest in an idea and in a person and in a team. And so, do I think that this team, this person really can build a company out of that kind of business idea, hypothesis, whatever you have developed? And then you need to be convincing in the end. And you can only convince other people if you're convinced yourself of what you're doing. And then what also came into my mind, perseverance is key. Love what you do. You will find yourself in big trouble sometime. You will need to tackle a lot of challenges along the way, and this is sometimes hard. And therefore, again, you need to love what you do. You need to believe in yourself, in your product, in your plan. That is saying that I don't mean don't have a realistic view on this. If you're making mistakes, if you might pivot in your product, keep an open mind and be flexible and open, but don't hesitate too much. So if you're just hesitating with your own service and what you do, that might not be very convincing. And then, yeah, perseverance over a long time is key. And you hardly won't find any entrepreneur who gave up the first time or the second time. It takes some time to really develop a product, a service, and then a business out of it, and also make money from it. So this is just kind of my personal advice, maybe some points to consider, to think about, to test yourself a bit. But then in the end, your reward is impact, is contribution, it's fun, it's team. When you work in a startup with a kind of a young team, a driven team with passionate people, this also gives back a lot. Sometimes you will have a bad day. You come to work, I don't know, something happened. And then if you have that passionate people around you who are also driven by something, that is a big reward. And in the end, coming back to responsibility, if you succeed in things, you know that you are responsible for it. And this is kind of the positive side. It's not like anybody else did it. You and your team and your teammates, you're responsible for what you actually created within your own startup. So I can just like summarize, having worked or lived in both worlds, there are ups and downs of on both sides. A corporate career or consulting or something like professional services, you do learn a lot. Also content-wise, you get a lot of trainings on the job, etc. You have a safe income. You get to know great clients. But if you're more a bit that passionate guy and not that corporate worker, you might want to consider also looking into more entrepreneurial environments, or also starting your own company. And yes, it is a risk. Yes, it is hard. Yes, you need perseverance. Yes, you will take responsibility, but the payoff is so much bigger and so much greater than any corporate career, from my point of view, I have to say. By that, it doesn't mean that everybody has to become an entrepreneur. So, as I said, just some thoughts from my side. What I've experienced during the last 12 years now, and what I wanted to share with you. Then maybe looking a little bit into the process, but I don't want to don't do too much deep diving into that, because I think this is what you have been through your program. I just try to summarize the main steps, and it's you can break it down into a much more detailed level then. How you can start your own company. And this is what we also do with our talents: prepare and get ready, first stage. And then the hardest one, find your first idea. And we talk to a lot of, often when people apply for programs, we talk to them, and they say, I really want to become an entrepreneur and I really passionate about, but how do I get to a first idea? Where do I get it? And I just say, keep an open eye on everything you see from your private life, your personal life, your professional life, and talk to other people, other entrepreneurial people, because usually you don't wake up in the night at 3 and have that great business idea. It comes from working, from engaging, from talking to other people, get into the right environment, to social events, connect to entrepreneurs, etc. Talk to them and really start with thinking about what or which problems do I want to solve? And are these real existing problems, or am I just thinking or imagining that might be some problems? And really talk to other people. Do you see that, do you have the same opinion like me? Do you see that problems in business, in personal life, whatever? Then really go for breaking the rules. You maybe don't wanna just do the next incremental innovation step. Most of the times corporations are much better in that, and you as a kind of outsider you might have a higher disruptive potential, so to say, because you don't have these 10 to 15 years industry experience and all that kind of heavy load on your back. You have a fresh view on things. So start with problems, talk to people, and try kind to break the rule. Your first idea should be somewhat bold, because when trying to implement your idea and building the business, you will have to pivot oftentimes and a lot of times, and also make compromises. So your first idea should be kind of bold. And then what I can really just encourage you to do, defining the focus. So for the first weeks, months, and years, it's focus, 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 because you will discover so much and plenty of opportunities, and people have ideas and want to introduce you to other people. And it's often hard to find out what is relevant and what is irrelevant in that moment. And then you need to get that focus, so that you really focus on your first prototype, on your first product, on your company, and don't get distracted in all that other directions when you get to know other people or introduce to people. And to keeping that focus, it's really do a lot of market research, do industry research. And I hope that university prepared you a bit for this. This is where you can really also make use of what you learned in terms of theories here, how you do a proper research, how you do proper studies, proper surveys, because you need that feedback early on to really define your focus. For the next step, it's like, depending on the stage you're in, usually you kind of scout your first team, like that could be your classmates from university, friends, or people you meet at, I don't know, startup fairs, a lot of stuff like this. And there I can just give you one advice: don't hire too much people that are like you. And usually you will have a bias. If you're kind of an extrovert, outgoing, more like the sales guy, you will more easily connect to the same type of people then. But if you hire 6 sales guys, that might be great. You might have the best marketing pitch ever, but there will be nobody building your product and, I don't know, doing the operations. So really try to find people that are complementary to yourself in your personality, also in your background from studying, university, professional background. I know this is hard, but because sometimes these are the people where you don't get that instant connect, where you don't feel that chemical, but really try to look for these people and not people who are just like you. There you will have the same discussions over and over again, and everybody has the same opinion more or less, and you will come to the same results all the time. And this is where you need really a diverse team from the personalities and skills. So, and the next phases are a little more how to really build your startup. Of course, it's about the business setup, and I think that is what you've been doing during the last 10, 11 weeks. It's of course you need a business model and a business plan. I'm really glad that nowadays you learn stuff like that at university, and you can really be very happy and very glad and thankful to have courses like this. When I've been at university, there was no startup entrepreneurial classes, how to set up a first pitch, how to set up or write a business model. And really, there you can build upon everything you learn in university. You need to get your financials straight. I know in the beginning, you will work with a lot of assumptions, but I can just encourage you. You should know what you're talking about when talking about financials. You should get your numbers straight and in order and clear. And then you can discuss about the assumptions you made, but you never want to find yourself in a situation where you go to a pitch, maybe a first investor, and you haven't got your numbers straight. And these are professionals. They're doing this day in and day out, and they will find out. And this is like when they see your pitch deck and there are kind of contradictions or whatever in your numbers, usually you're out, because this is kind of a hygiene factor to get these things in order. Don't forget about the legal setup. When we talk about kind of data privacy, intellectual property, I think you don't need to be an expert in that, but you should consider it when really pitching your first business later on. Then, of course, pre-acceleration phase, kind of where you prototype your first version of the product, service, app, database, platform, whatever you're thinking of, and then you do testing. And prototyping and testing is what you're doing all the time. And a first prototype, it could really be kind of just a front end with mock-ups, but you need to get that feedback from testing, from real customers. And this is also how you can convince maybe your first investor. If you say, okay, we have that app just as a prototype and the functionalities are just like very limited, but we talked to 200 customers and 50 stated straight away they would pay for this app if it would be available in the App Store. So then you get strong arguments for yourself, even if you don't have the resources, money yet to build kind of a full product then. And also investors, they will acknowledge that you really go out and talk to people and talk to customers and do the testing, and that you're open and that you took the effort to do it. What they don't like is just seeing kind of PowerPoint pitch decks sending around to venture capitalists or business angels, unless there are real customer data in it. And then, of course, venturing and acceleration, it's about real product development. So then prototype isn't enough. You want to have a real product. Then it's becoming an entrepreneur also includes operations. You really will find yourself in the situation where you build a company, and then a company, it's not just a product, it's a team, it's organization, it's processes, it's financing, and then you will learn everything from A to Z, and not just kind of a snapshot of product development, especially when you're kind of the founder of something. Further financing is always needed after you just finished your first financing round. The day after, you will start thinking about the next financing round, how to spend that money you just received, and like what is your burn rate in terms of how many months or maybe years I can get with that money, and when do I need the next financing round. And then it's at the beginning of your startup, it's all about growth, customers, and sales. You need to show that the world really needs your product, and that there are customers interested in it, and not just interested, that they're really buying it. And this, I'd say 70% of your time will be, or you will need to spend that time on growth, customers, and sales. And this is what we see when we talk to startups. They are pretty much concerned about their product in terms of, did we include all the necessary features and the front end.
So now we really lost Charlie, right?
You can hear me again. I just lost you like for 3 seconds.
Yes, Charlie, we lost you.
Yeah, but I hope I'm back now. So this is I'm almost coming to the end.
Sorry.
Yep.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you please share your screen again, because it collapsed?
Oh, sure. Also collapsed. So everything collapsed here.
Yeah.
This is almost, so I'm almost finished, because when we see entrepreneurs, because you usually start with your idea, with your prototype, with your product, and they're spending a lot of time to product development and feature development and front end and user design and. But you need to get customers. You need to grow as a startup, because when you want to get financing, the investors, they don't care too much about the product. They're simply asking, will it work on the market? Will it work with customers? And can you prove that? And if you don't have thousands and millions of customers in the beginning, but if you have your first product version and said, okay, we within a quarter, we convinced, I don't know, 100 customers to book it to I don't know, have a subscription model or whatever, you have a proof case. And this is what I call them, these product lovers always forget about: growth, customer, new markets, and sales. And you should hire for salespeople early on if you're not that sales guy yourself, and really show that that trend that investors then later on can see, and that you have numbers to prove it. Because what we also often see, too much assumptions, especially for startups that already exist for at least, I don't know, half a year or a little longer. And they always tell you stories about the future, and just stories, how their product and company might evolve and develop, and what a great success this will be if. And then you just ask, how many customers do you currently have? And so what you often experience is silence. How much revenue did you make? So please don't make the mistakes to forget it and concentrate too much on the product. Even if you give your product out for free, like free samples, but then you get customer feedback again, and where you might want to build up or build upon. But this is one of the points, where we often see that product-driven companies are lacking a bit. So far from my side, and I said now I'm more than happy to discuss all of your questions concerning me, my experience, what we do at Futuri about building companies. So just maybe a last remark, what we did through all our programs, we have seen somewhat around 50 entrepreneurship teams, so people and teams starting here at one of our academies and try to build a first prototype product and a company out of it. So we have quite a range from experiences we have seen, from teams succeeding, not succeeding, and how their journey was. So I'm open to all questions and I'll give my best to answer all of them. But now, yeah, it's up to you what you want to know.
Thank you, Sean.